Welcome to the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel, and on today's episode, I'm speaking with Amee, a dedicated healthcare provider known for her expertise and compassionate care. Beyond her professional achievements, she's a passionate mental health advocate and openly shares her personal journey living with epilepsy. She's a powerful voice for those who feel they cannot speak up for themselves, working to raise awareness and foster understanding about mental health and invisible illnesses. Amee, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk with you today and learn more about your own personal journey and all of the advocacy that you're doing. So, I guess to start out, you were diagnosed with epilepsy at a young age, at 8 years old. What was it like growing up through most of your childhood with having epilepsy?
Yeah, most of my childhood, it started at a younger age. We got treatment I needed, access to care and doctors, and it seemed pretty simple. I was on one medication and it didn't affect what I was able to do on a day-to-day basis. I, went to school. It didn't affect sports. I was part of many clubs in high school, so it didn't really affect my lifestyle much. And therefore, it wasn't really something that was disclosed, not intentionally, I wouldn't say, but it just didn't need to be. And that was pretty much my journey and went through all of that.
Did you ever feel like a pressure growing up to hide it, or was it more just like it didn't really come up or wasn't an issue that much at that time?
It was just an unspoken kind of, we didn't talk about it. Now, I don't know if that was cultural, implications or personal, and I brought that upon myself. Maybe it was a combination of both.
Mhm.
But in retrospect, I don't really know why, but I also know we didn't have to.
Mhm. And, you somewhat recently started talking more publicly about your experience with epilepsy. What inspired you to actually, start talking about it more publicly like that?
Yeah, I think once you get to a certain age, and I have children, and I think we're in a different era now. And I think it's important to have these conversations. I went through a 5-day stay at the hospital, which, if you follow me, I was very open about. And I got to the point in my life where I'm like, what am I hiding for? And who am I hiding for? And I can use this as a platform for knowledge instead of having it something I'm going through alone. I can use this to, get more knowledge for myself and also spread that to somebody else and be supportive to somebody else. So why am I not using this positively? And that's kind of where the 5-day stay came. And I was like, one, I'm not going to lie where I'm at for 5 days. I mean, where do you fall off the face of the earth for 5 days? And so it was kind of like, you know what? We're just going to talk about this. We haven't because we haven't needed to, but why not?
Yeah. And you mentioned you were in the hospital recently for that 5-day stay. I'm wondering, has your experience of your epilepsy kind of changed over time? Like, did it change from childhood into adulthood in terms of, I don't know, more seizures or different seizures, or how did that change?
One bout where we had a little bit of challenge was when I was trying to have children.
Mhm.
And that was an intentional change in medications. And a lot of people don't talk about women's health and epilepsy. And that was real. And it was something I was going through. I had the right provider to help me navigate that. It was something done intentionally because a lot of the medications cause birth defects and this, whatnot. So it was an intentional decision made to, you know what, we're going to go through this phase and it could be difficult. It could be easy. It was difficult, but still not enough to where I needed to talk about it, if that makes any sense. It's
Mhm.
like we went through it on our own. It didn't stop my lifestyle. I wasn't hiding it. I wasn't really lying about it. I was just going through some of the side effects that didn't really interfere with my day to day life. So we went through that hump, and I have two beautiful children and everything is good. I have my family, and we've come across kind of about again, and I think it could be age related and hormone related and all kinds of things at the age I'm at. And this test has been something that my doctors have been telling me to get done for years,
Mhm.
years. I mean, years. And so this wasn't something that was like, okay, now we have to do this. It was more me saying, why have I been avoiding this?
Mhm.
Right. Like, I know it's 5 days is a long time. And I had my own list of reasons of why I was avoiding it. I didn't need to, like what were we going to gain out of it was my thought.
Mhm.
And finally, when I had my second round of challenges like this year, in 2024, I was like, well, what do I have to lose? So it was shifting the mindset of, okay, I have nothing to gain, but then also being like, well, I don't really have anything to lose by doing this. So what am I afraid of? Like face your fears. And also having kids, if they're going through something, I felt it was really important to model that for them. Is if my children are going through something or any child is going through something, if I don't model that of being openness and being able to talk about it, how can I expect the next generation moving forward to not do that? I was like, I'm creating a problem without realizing I'm creating a problem. And so that, putting all of that together, I was like, why am I not talking about this? Like, I've gone through my entire life. And this year was when I was like making up excuses of why I didn't want to go out to dinner at 7. I was just tired and just little things. And it just kind of made me realize these are my closest friends. Why am I feeling the need to not tell them what's going on? Because all these years I haven't had to, right? So there's people that have known me for 20 and 30 and, so many years, and they didn't know because there was no reason to.
Mhm.
And I had to set the preface before I went into this 5-day stay of like, look, this is what I have. This is a little bit challenging right now. And just was liberating. It was liberating for me on a personal level. And just to come out and embrace it and realize like you're not alone. And there's so many other people battling different things in different ways.
So it was very recently, this
Yeah.
long hospital stay, it sounds like really was a major impetus for sharing with a lot of people in your personal life. It sounds like your friends and such. So wow. Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, of the 5-day stay, what information were you or the doctors trying to learn from that?
Yeah. So we were treating symptoms based off of what I was saying, right? Like, these are my symptoms. All the testing that I had done previously was all normal. So you're treating a condition based on what I've seen, but they've never seen any, you know, real evidence of where the problem is coming from or the source of the problem.
Mhm.
And now I was just ready to surrender to that. Be like, look, what is holding me back from doing this? This is informational. And so what they were able to do during the test was decrease my medication levels and find out exactly where in the brain the triggers are.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, because I think I've heard that for many people, they don't necessarily know what their triggers are for seizures.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And some of that is I've known my triggers just from life and situations through all these years,
Mhm.
but internally, from a biological perspective, where is the trigger coming from?
Yep.
Right. And being in the field of science, why am I not doing this? So it was more to provide information to myself and my providers and see if there needed to be any changes in treatment plan with that information.
Oh, wow, that's good. Yeah, I hope that provides some answers for you because yeah, that's a big step, and I'm glad that you finally had the courage to prioritize and say, "I'm gonna go through with this," because as you said, it's a big it's a time commitment, it's a big thing,
Mhm.
but it also impacts the rest of your life because, as you said, you have to share with people close to you, like, "Where am I going for 5 days?"
Right. I came
Yeah.
back, they're like, how was your vacation? And I was like, it wasn't a vacation, but let me tell you what happened.
Mhm. So then, how did people react to you when you started talking about having epilepsy, whether that's people in your sort of close personal circle or even on social media?
Yeah, there was so much positive support. And that's what I've realized is people are good. And I've said this over and over again is people are out to help you. And I needed to get my family on board because I needed that extra support. I was listening to my body, so I wasn't staying up late at night. I needed people to drive my kids around because it was just after a long day of work. Why did I need to do that if I had people there to support me? And why wasn't I utilizing the support system that was there in front of me? And talking about it and opening up about it allowed me to do that
Mhm.
and take advantage of that. Take that pressure that we all have in different ways of doing it all and being everywhere.
Mhm. Did you hear from anyone in your circle who maybe was concerned about you talking more openly about it or anything like that?
I mean, from a cultural standpoint, yes, I was kind of asked, like, is this something that needs to be talked about? Like, why? Who is it going to benefit? And things like that. And I really did take a step back and think about it before it's like, you know what? That's a valid question. Why is it necessary? But then my response in my head as I'm thinking through it is, well, why not if it can benefit somebody?
Mhm.
So for me, it was a matter of empowerment and taking my power back to talk about my story in hopes that it can help somebody else.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really powerful because I don't think people realize, and I certainly didn't realize just how common epilepsy is. I think I heard the statistic like 1 in 26 people, and very few people really talk about it.
Right, right. So imagine walking into a room of 100 people. There's 4 people who you may or may not know. And we all look the same. We all show up the same, right? It's that invisible illness, mental health. It all kind of floods in together as far as the purpose goes.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful.
So, we talked about in your bio that you do advocacy around mental health and invisible or hidden illnesses or disabilities. And you have an Instagram account called BehindTheBindis. I'd love to learn more about what's the significance of that name.
So that more it comes from more from a cultural standpoint
Mhm.
because that's where I think it's epilepsy in general is a stigma across the board. I think that condition is across the board. But from a broader term, it's more is why I went culturally a little bit deeper into it is because it's not just epilepsy, it's everything that is not normal, right? I've checked off the boxes, whatever that means of getting an education and getting married and getting children, whatever that looks like to normalcy, right? And then no one really talks about something that if everything's cut under the rug of real problems that need real attention that can really be supported.
Mhm.
And it was really just coming out culturally through and breaking those stigmas over generations.
Yeah. And that's really important. And then incorporating the bindi into that, is there a significance around sort of behind that?
Yeah. So the bindi, for those who don't know, is the kind of the third eye or the dot that's worn by the Indian culture. And now it's just decorative. Kind of, it had more significance in the olden days as far as you only wore it if you were married. And that's what that signified. Now it's just we wear it when we're dressed up, when we're going to events and things like that. So that really is a representation of a cultural representation of what are we hiding behind as a culture.
Mhm. I don't know if this is the right phrasing, but what kind of either stigma or, things that might be encouraging people to hide when it comes to South Asian culture have you experienced around epilepsy, or as a South Asian woman have you experienced?
Yeah, just in general in the South Asian culture, I think we really bog down into what other people may think or see and perceive of us, if that is considered negative. And that can be, this is very broad, right? But any challenges that may be faced, whether it's, mental health, depression, anxiety, any of those things that are not blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes,
Mm.
is is kind of just not addressed as much, or it's just not taken as important and prioritized. Whereas now I've come, these are real challenges, and they deserve to be given more attention to. This next generation, you would hate to have someone who's 17, 18, 19 going through someone and just being dismissed and saying, that's not really a problem. We're making it a problem. Or being like, you don't want to tell anyone about that because, well, what are they going to think? Well, really, the more you talk about something, the more access you have to resources.
Mhm.
For me, it's like when I talked about it, I was like given resources and directed to other healthcare professionals or other doctors and other testing. And just the open conversation was more helpful than it was not.
That's great. Yeah, and I'm sure there are many, many people who are probably going through very similar struggles as you who have epilepsy and maybe are afraid to be more open about it or are thinking about like, should they? Like, what are the benefits? Or is it
Right.
better for me to just not talk about it? Or who do I tell? So I think those are a lot of questions that maybe people don't have people to talk to or role models or people who are kind of out there and saying like this is my experience and this is how it could potentially help. So that's really valuable.
Yeah, and everyone's going to go through their process. I'm not, advocating the first day you're having something or a challenge, you go out and tell the world about it, right? Everyone is going to have a different way of processing a situation or a challenge that they're facing. I just want to be out there to say, whether it's one person you tell or one person you seek out to, whether it's me, a trusted friend, a family member, don't don't shy away from that, as you're going to be judged. You won't be judged. And if you are, that's okay too, but you're doing it to seek the support that you need.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really important. So as you shared your story on social media, what kind of reaction have you gotten from people who are following your account?
Yeah, just a lot of support and a lot of knowledge and education that I've learned and resources I've been able to turn to. And you realize it's just a network full of support and care. And I want to use that platform and currently able to use that platform as a tool for educating, because I don't think there's a lot of education on the general term of epilepsy, right? It's such a generalized term that's thrown out there, but there are 35 different types and it's presented differently in every single person, and you can't see it,
Mhm.
right? We all walk around looking the same, doing the same, living our lives. And the more you open up about something, the more access to resources you have, really, is what my biggest kind of takeaway has been.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there are probably a lot of stereotypes in society about what epilepsy looks like, and I think we
Yeah.
have that whole thing from the movies or media about the probably one particular type of epilepsy and types of seizures. But as you said, there's so many different types, so people really need to learn that it really looks in many many different ways, and you can't tell most of the
Yeah. I
time.
mean, I've had my own closest friends who really, wanted to take interest in or asking, like, tell me more. And that's spreading the awareness and spreading the information to people. And that's what this is all about.
That's really important. Oh, that's great. Yeah. And how long have you been advocating online talking about epilepsy?
It's been very new because I didn't have a reason to. I was hiding, right? I was one of the ones that I'm trying to help. I was hiding behind something and I didn't know what I was hiding behind. But I knew when I was missing for 5 days, I had to face it, right? It was in my face. It was a choice I made. It was the best decision for my testing and needing to get information for myself. And I wouldn't want my children to lie about what they're going through for 5 days. So, what role model am I at that point is what it came down to. It's like, well, no, I'm not on vacation. You
Mm,
know? So that's what kind of instigated that. Let me set the stage for what I'm really going through and what's real. So when I get to that point, I can share that information. And if someone else is thinking about this or is needing to go through this process, maybe I could help someone the way I found help on social media or guidance or an idea of what I was going to go in for. I was educated and I would be happy to be able to do that for somebody else is the goal.
Well, it's so cool to be talking to you at sort of the beginning of your social media advocacy and really starting to share your story widely. And yeah, it's really important to be able to share those stories and just encourage people because, as you said, there are so many people who are going through similar challenges because epilepsy is much more common than we realize.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Ami, thank you so much for talking about your advocacy and your own story on my show. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your advocacy and follow you online?
Yeah, yeah. The handle, which I think will be on the page, is at BehindTheBindis. You feel free to message me. Once you message me on there, we can go into a little bit deeper. I have an email. You can email me. I would love to pick up the phone. I can talk to anybody. So I'm pretty accessible as far as, if you need a support system, that is my goal and that's what I'm here for. If you have any questions, if you know a family member going through something and you don't quite understand it or you want more information, then I feel like that's a good conversation that I could provide for anybody else who's even a family member or has someone close to them that they know.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'll put a link to your Instagram account behind the Bindies in the show notes so that people can contact you through that. As we close out, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know or anything that they can help or support you with?
Once you start to talk about it, you can receive help and access to where you need to be and the support. I think most importantly is no one knows you need support if they don't know what you're going through. And there's no reason anyone should go through challenges alone when their network and their support system is right in front of them. They just don't know. So
Yeah,
that was the biggest kind of takeaway that I feel like, and it's very liberating. And you turn that into an educational tool for somebody else. And that is my goal.
that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm so glad that this journey has been so liberating for you and is clearly going to be helping so many people hearing your story. So that's wonderful. Thanks again, Ami. It was great talking with you today.
Likewise, have a good one. Thank you.